morning we are continuing in our series titled Disciple. A couple weeks ago, Pastor Hoyt shared with us the 5 benchmarks of a legit disciple. And he gave those to us, and they were growing, going, giving, connecting, and serving. Last week, he shared with us about growing and how a disciple is constantly learning. A disciple is always looking for ways to grow. This morning, we're going to spend some time sharing with one another on the topic of going. I was listening to a missionary several months back, and he said these words, and they've stuck with me ever since hearing this message. He said, we have to stop standing and waiting and start going and doing. The question for us this morning is, what keeps us from going? Why is going hard? Why is it a challenge to get outside of ourselves and to be around those who don't know Jesus, and just to love them and to love them and to love them and to love them until they're introduced to Jesus? Why is that hard? I'm going to give us three things that keep us from going this morning. The first one is this, is our comfort keeps us from going. I think it's human nature to find a place that we can get comfortable and settle in. For some of us, it's not a challenge at all. Anywhere you are, you can find a place to get comfortable and to settle in. But I want you to hear this morning, that for a disciple, comfort is a killer. For a disciple, for someone who's going to say, Jesus, wherever you're going, I'm following you. Our desire to get comfortable is a killer. The tendency is always to settle in, but disciples were designed for going. If I can be honest with us this morning, I think that many of us have found ourselves settling in on our spiritual couches. This is nice. See, the thing about sitting down and settling in and getting comfortable is that you don't want to get up. I might preach from here the rest of the morning, because it's just nice, it's comfortable, it's easy, it's good. But comfort does a few things. See, the more comfortable I get, the less I have a sense of urgency in my life. The more I settle in, the less important other things sound. The comfort causes a lack of urgency in my heart. For some of us, we've settled into this idea that, man, all I'm supposed to do as a disciple is just sit. When in reality, we've been called to go. We've been called. We almost took the whole door out just now. That whole thing almost went. We've been called to go. We've been called to step through the door, to get outside, to go and to make disciples, and yet the couch just sounds a lot better. And so it's easier for me just to kind of settle in and say, God, but I like it here. I like where you've already brought me. I feel like I've grown in so many ways. This is nice just to kind of sit here and just to enjoy this. Can't I just stay? Comfort erases our sense of urgency. Comfort causes us to become consumers rather than contributors. The more we settle in, the more we think it's about making us more comfortable. I need to hear more nice things. I don't want to hear anything that's going to make me have to get up. I find this as a challenge sometimes in my own house when I come home and all I want to do is just sit down on the couch and I just want to relax for a minute, and then one of my kids needs something. So I have to get back up and I have to go help, and you can tell that I always have a really great attitude about that. And then I go and I sit back down, and then one of the other ones needs something. And so I have to get back up and I have to go and I have to do something for them. And then I go and I sit back down, and then my third one needs something. Some of us, we feel like that with God. We feel like, God, why do you keep asking me to get up? And God said, because I never asked you to sit down. You keep taking a seat on the couch, and I'm saying you need to go. You need to go. You need to go. I think comfort distracts us from our true purpose. There's a story in 2 Samuel about David, and it's in 2 Samuel chapter 11, and many of us have heard this story because it's the story of David and Bathsheba. It's a story about how David has this moral failure, and we see that all play out, but the way it begins, I think, should be kind of a wake-up call and a warning for all of us as we settle into our comfortable couches spiritually. 2 Samuel 11, 1 and 2, it says, "It happened in the spring of the year, at the time when kings go out to battle, that David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel. And they destroyed the people of Ammon and besieged Rabbah. But David remained in Jerusalem." Did you catch that? In verse 1, it says that in the springtime when kings go out to battle, David did what? He remained at home. David, whose responsibility was to go into battle, it was not only to go, it was to lead the people into battle. He chose rather to just stay at home. And all kinds of things unfolded from there. He takes another man's wife. She becomes pregnant. He then figures out, like, what am I going to do? I have to solve this. So he has this woman's husband sent to the front of the battle. Remember the battle that he was supposed to be at. He sends this man to the front of the battle so that he dies. We have to remember this about our comfort. When we choose comfort over going, lives are lost. Number 2, what keeps us from going? Our fear keeps us from going. We fear our own inadequacies. We fear our own mistakes. We think, who am I to go anywhere? How can I go tell anyone about Jesus? I don't know which words to use. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know enough in the Bible. I couldn't walk through Scripture. Maybe you're brand new to this walk with Jesus yourself, and you're going, what do I have to share? How can I go? And we become so afraid. We get so worried about going through the door, and rather than go through it, we continue to just kind of peek through, hoping to see, well, I'm just nervous about what's on the other side of the door. We know that God's word says, go and make disciples, but we're just scared. How can I go? I want to encourage us with this, is that when you look back through Scripture, when you get into the Bible and you see these disciples that we read about, And you see the things that stood out about them, the things that people noticed, the things that impacted those that they rubbed shoulders with. It wasn't how well they spoke. It wasn't how much they knew. It wasn't their ability to put together these great messages and to do all these important sounding things. Instead, it was that they were courageous enough to go. And they cared enough to love people. The Bible tells us that they'll know we're his disciples by what? By how we love each other. Acts 4:13, speaking of a couple of the disciples, it says, when they saw the courage of Peter and John and realized they were unschooled, ordinary men, they were astonished and they took note that these men had been with Jesus. Unschooled, ordinary people, but courageous people. Willing people to say, God, wherever you want me to go, I'll go. We can't let fear keep us from going. The cost is too great. The third one is this. What keeps us from going, from sharing the good news, from telling people, loving people until they're introduced to Jesus or in a way that introduces them to Jesus? Number 3, we're not friends with enough sinners. We aren't going because we don't know anybody that doesn't know Jesus. We haven't put ourselves in relationship with somebody who needs to know. Notice I said we're not friends with people who don't know. I didn't say we don't know people who don't know. But are we friends with people? Are we loving people? Going isn't just about going out and doing something and hoping that somehow by osmosis people are going to catch what we're saying. And going is about relationship. It's about choosing to go to a place where someone doesn't know that there's a God who loves them unconditionally, and choosing to love them and love them and love them and introduce them to that God. You look at Jesus, our model, and the number one accusation against Jesus by the religious people was that he sits and eats with the wrong people. They had a problem with Jesus being a friend to sinners. Luke 15:1-2, it says, now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, this man welcomes sinners and eats with them. This is what Jesus knew that the Pharisees were missing. He knew that relationship was far more important than perfection. Without relationship, we'll never see our community reached. Without relationship with people, without loving people and walking through life with people, then saturating our city and our world with the heart of God is really just a slogan we have written on our walls. Going requires us to have relationship with people. It requires us to let go of our comfort, to be courageous enough to step out of our fear, and to love people who are messy and broken. When I read this, sometimes I like to think, what if Obviously, he wouldn't have done this, but what if Jesus would have listened to the Pharisees? So the Pharisees, they had this issue. They said, well, he's eating and he's hanging out with sinners, with people who are lost, who are messed up. Why would Jesus do that? Doesn't he know how that makes him look? Doesn't he realize who he's associating with? And I think, what if he would have said, you're right. I can't hang out with these people. I'm supposed to be a teacher, a rabbi. I'm supposed to be perfect and spotless. How can I be around these people? I think about if he would have stopped then I would never have had any hope. If he would have listened to the religious teachers of the time and said, you're right, we ought not to be friends with sinners. Are you kidding me? That's crazy. Then no one would have ever come and been my friend. I'd still be walking around lost somewhere, not knowing that there's a God who loves me no matter what kind of mess I'm in. Church, when we do that, when we decide, you know what, it's us over here and then it's them over there, then people are missing the news that they need more desperately than anything else. I don't know if you know this, but there's people in our city who will never come into this church, no matter how well we do a service or how great the building looks. They won't. That right now, in our city, there's people who are lost and broken, who don't know Jesus, and they're not coming here. But they might come to your house for dinner. They might sit in Starbucks with you and have a coffee. They might be willing to hang out with you at your kids' ball games. They might be willing to just go to Buffalo Wild Wings or DJ's Dugout with you and just hang out. Friends, they might not come here, but that doesn't mean we can't go there. That doesn't mean we can't reach them. Romans 10, 13 through 15, it says, for everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. But how can they call on him to save them unless they believe in him? And how can they believe in them if they've never heard about him? And how can they hear about him unless someone tells them? How will anyone go and tell them without being sent? This is why the scriptures say, how beautiful are the feet of the messengers who bring the good news. How is anyone going to hear if no one goes? The sending has already happened. Matthew 28:19, Jesus sent his disciples. He said, go. Go into all the world. Go everywhere and make disciples. You have been sent. For some of you, you may be thinking, well, I'm not like Kirk Spain. I don't know if I could go to South Africa. I'm not telling you to go to South Africa. God might be, but I don't know. But I'll tell you what he's probably not going to do. God's probably not going to take this entire room and say, all of you need to go to South Africa. Kirk's in South Africa. We're going to send teams there. Hopefully there's going to be people that continue to be called to go there, but where are you called to? The question for a disciple is not, should I go? It's, God, where are you sending me? We don't have to wrestle with that one. We don't have to go, God, do you want me to go somewhere? Yes. Every day. Every day he's saying the same thing. Go into all the world and make disciples. Go to your workplace and love someone and love them and love them and love them and introduce them to Jesus. Go to the restaurants. Go to the movies. Go to the gyms. Go into all of Bellevue and make disciples. Go into all of Omaha and all of Nebraska and all the United States and all the world and make disciples. Don't let comfort keep you on the couch. Don't settle in spiritually and think, well, I went before, I've gone back, I'm okay now, I can just sit and relax. We're not called to sit down. We're not called to settle in and relax. We're called to go. Don't let fear keep you. God's not worried about what you can't do. God knows all about what he can do. He just wants to know if you'll go. If we choose not to go, there will be people who will not hear. I want to switch gears for just a minute. I've been talking to all of us who are saying, I am a disciple. I want to continue to grow in this journey. And maybe you're in here this morning and see, well, I don't have this relationship with Jesus. I don't know exactly what you're talking about, or you heard me talk about good news, or the gospel, or this message that we're called to bring. And you say, well, I don't even know what that's all about. And I want to talk to you for just a minute. This good news that we're talking about, this message that we're so passionate about bringing to our city and to our world is this. It's that there is a man named Jesus who loved you enough to lay down his life, to give up himself, to put himself in the place of all of your mistakes and all of your sin, to rescue you. I want you to hear this, that there is no sin or sinner that's too great for the love of Jesus. And no matter what you walked in here with this morning, that God's love is bigger than all of it. And that this morning you don't have to walk out of this place and not have a relationship with him. If we could all close our eyes all across this place. I want to ask this question. If you would say this morning, I want this love that you're talking about. I want to be in this relationship. I want to accept this free gift that Jesus offers. Then I'm going to ask that right where you're at, if you would just slip up your hand real quick. I just want to pray for you. I just want to pray over you and just celebrate with you. So if that's you, you can just slip up your hand real quick. Awesome. I see your hand back there. I see your hand. I see that hand as well. Jesus, you see these hands that have gone up. God, you know each and every heart. I pray that right now, as they're surrendering themselves to you, they're just saying, God, you see their hearts saying, I want this. I want this relationship with you. God, I just pray that your love, your grace, and your mercy would just pour out into their lives right now. God, and we celebrate that there's individuals today that are making a decision to follow you. I want to invite everybody to open your eyes back up and look back up here. And as we close, my challenge is for all of us in this room. We have to remember that going is not an option. We've been given a command to go. This morning, you may be wrestling with some comfort. Maybe you know that in your heart, spiritually, you've settled in, and it's just not an urgent matter to you right now. That you know that you've just lost that urgency, that you have to go, and that there's lost people that you have to find, that Jesus wants to use you to reach. I believe today he wants to give you that urgency back. He wants to give you his heart that says we have to go. Maybe some of you are dealing with fear. You've got inadequacies that you just go, I don't know if I can get past this. He wants to give you courage. Maybe some of you just need shaken up a little bit, and you need reminded to get out to love someone different than you. Maybe you need reminded where you were when Jesus found you. We're going to pray a simple prayer all together as we close. I want to invite the prayer team to come and get in place. In Isaiah 6:8, it says, I also heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then I said, here am I, send me. What we're going to do is we're just going to pray a prayer over us. If you're saying, I want to be done with my comfort or my fear, and I want new relationships. I want to be friends with those who are lost because I want to see people come into the kingdom. Then we're just going to pray that prayer. We're going to say, God, here we are. Send us. And we're not going to put stipulations on it. God, send me as long as it's not there. We're just going to say, God, wherever you want, send me. So I want to invite you to stand with me as I pray. Father, you see each and every one of us. And you hear our hearts this morning. We're saying, God, we want to go. God, will you send us? Will you show us places that we can go and love people like you love them? God, may we be a church that is outward focused, that knows that you've placed us in this community, in this city for a reason. God, we want to see this city and our world reached for you. We say yes, we will go.